افضل السلام محمد و آل محمد. لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول اللہ. لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول اللہ. حسب رب اللہ ما فی قلب غیر اللہ. حسب رب اللہ ما فی قلب غیر اللہ. نور محمد صلی علی لا الہ الا اللہ. لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول اللہ. کون و مقام ہے اللہ دونوں جہاں میں ہے اللہ. کون و مقام ہے اللہ دونوں جہاں میں ہے اللہ. جسم اور جاں میں ہے اللہ. لا الہ الا اللہ. لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول اللہ. اول و آخر ہے اللہ باطن و ظاہر ہے اللہ. اول و آخر ہے اللہ باطن و ظاہر ہے اللہ. حافظ و ناصر ہے اللہ. لا الہ الا اللہ. لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول اللہ. ذات ہے اس کی لسانی اس کی صفت ہے نورانی. ذات ہے اس کی لسانی اس کی صفت ہے نورانی. سر کلام ربانی. لا الہ الا اللہ. لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول. کسی نے پوچھا کہ جنت کی کوئی قیمت ہے. کسی نے پوچھا کہ جنت کی کوئی قیمت ہے تو مصطفیٰ نے کہا لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول اللہ. لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول اللہ. دیکھتے کیا ہو اہل صفا آ پہنچے محبوب خدا. देखते क्या हो अहले सफा आ पहुँचे महबूबे खुदा याने हो चुके जलवानुमा मुहम्मदुर रसूलुल्लाह ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मुहम्मदुर रसूलुल्लाह ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मुहम्मदुर रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه وخاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين سيد الأولين والآخرين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل ربنا لا تجعلنا مع قوم الظالمين. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. It's nice to see you all again. So, mashallah. For tonight's topic, I was thinking, what to do. Alhamdulillah, Mahfil gives me a lot of time. Kumail invites me like a month before. Some other people, they just call me 3-4 days and I have to think, but that means there's more pressure. But what I was thinking was, when we look at al-Baqir alayhi salam's life, and it's an honor to speak about this great Imam. When we say that he is a great Imam, and we are congregated here, if you read the history books, and you look at the term Imam, that term Imam means something else, as opposed to when we commemorate and say, I'm coming to my Imam's Wiladat, or this is the 5th Shia Imam. So we already think that al-Baqir alayhi salam, we are celebrating here, that he is related very much to us, or the Shia faith. But as I was preparing the lecture over the last few weeks, if you, for example, read Kitabul Irshad, you see that al-Baqir alayhi salam is described in a way that he relates to the hawza and the amma. This is the distinction made which we still use today. The hawza meaning those that are chosen or specific, essentially relating to the Shia, and the amma relating to the Ahlul Sunnah or the other sects which had a different idea about the Imams. In this lecture, as per the title, I want to just accomplish one very simple thing. What was Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam's vision for society? Not for Muslims, not for Shia, not for Sunni, but for society. What did he want society to become? How did he want a Shia to behave in that society? How did he relate to people? How was his knowledge applicable to all different sects? How was he able to relate to the poor person or the person on the street? And so if a non-Muslim was to walk in here, and whether it's I'm speaking or you are speaking, it doesn't matter, they should be able to find Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir alayhi salam relevant to their lives. And so sometimes we have restricted the contribution of the Imams only to their relationship with their followers. But as I will mention, when you read the history books, it is rather the opposite. I've also been requested just to speak a little about Lady Fatima, salamullahi alayha, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And it does relate to the topic about her concern for society. If you look at Lady Fatima's life, there is one very common incident which is narrated, but I just want to expand on it. Every Thursday night and or Friday, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhimus salam used to hear their dear mother go into sajda or sometimes do dua, praying for the community, praying for the society, praying for all other people. And they used to ask a question. They used to say, "My dear mother, how come you are mentioning other people in your dua and not us?" And she always used to give this very philosophical response, which is whenever you make dua, you pray for other people first before yourself. It's such a wonderful but simple lesson to us. Sometimes we go into sajda or whatever supplication we are doing, and immediately we may think of us. But the way for dua and acceptance of dua is to pray for other people. In fact, in her khutbah of Fadak, which I have here, in that very khutbah, if you have ever read it, by the way, in the early part of that sermon, which is done in front of Abu Bakr, she herself talks about religion, or I should say Islam, in a very holistic manner. Now, when I was growing up, listening to lectures, the Bibi Fatima or Lady Fatima that was painted to me was the lady who was very pure, always used to do her rituals, didn't used to raise her voice, used to help in the household, did not used to interact with other people. Okay? And for many years, that is the picture I had. But when you look at this sermon, it tells us that not only was Lady Fatima to Zahra salamullahi alayha an intelligent person, forget man or woman, an intelligent human being, but she was eloquent and she had a deeper understanding of Islam than we give her credit for. In that khutbah, she explains in perhaps 3 paragraphs, lengthy paragraphs, but 3 reasonably long paragraphs, what Islam is. She defines Islam, saying, for example, that the purpose of salat is to remove arrogance. That's it. That's the purpose of salat. So if I'm praying or I finish my prayer, Jazakallah, that chili was hot, by the way. Anybody else found it? So I was talking to 3-4 people, so that was the consensus there. I don't know about the ladies, but so I didn't think I would get water, but alhamdulillah, I thought I have to wait till then. Thank you. So she says that salat, the objective of salah is to remove arrogance. So I might be praying lots, but I am still an arrogant person. I haven't learned the value of salat. The point of Islam, as she mentions, for example, she says that adl, justice, is to bring harmony to the heart. That is the point of justice, harmony to one's heart, that you are just to yourself and just to other people. Amr bil ma'aruf is, she says, a maslaha, a reform, and a huge benefit for the society. She talks and thinks about how society should function in relation to the principles of Islam. There is so much we can learn from her. And I want to just say one thing, that we often associate ilm, for example, with al-Baqir al-Islam, meaning his name, al-Baqir. Often we say the splitter of knowledge, which has been interpreted in a wide variety of ways. Not just the giver of knowledge, but the one who splits open the concepts of knowledge. He's critical. But Lady Fatima, when you read that sermon, you see the fountainhead, along with Rasulullah, peace be upon him, of where this depth of knowledge and understanding of Islam came from. Please can we recite a salawat for Lady Fatima Zahra. When it comes to al-Baqir alayhi salam, as I've said that often we hear that he is the one that, spread knowledge. There was the school of al-Baqir, the school of Ja'far as-Sadiq. But before all of that, who was he as a person? What did he think was important in his behavior and in running a society? In Kitabul Irshad, 2 or 3 narrations are mentioned. I just want to share this with you, just to show his personality. Okay? He said to his companion, shame on the brother Who is the brother who looks after you when you are rich and separates from you when you are poor? And how many people can you mention in your life that you consider as true brothers or true sisters? I can probably mention a few, 2 or 3, that I have found in my life that I can count on. And others, we don't know. Sometimes relationships change, moods change, status changes. A lot of things change. But who are the people you can count on? When we say that you and I are brothers or brothers and sisters, that really means that we can rely on each other regardless of the change of status. That is a true brother. Consider this other one which is related to it. He says that the best of a'amal are 3. There are 3 best works or deeds that you can do. The first is looking after brothers with money, or brothers or sisters with money, helping your society with money. Second is giving people justice on your own account, to be just. And third, mentioning Allah in every circumstances. We have reports where Imam Jafar Sadiq al-Islam used to say that whenever I used to see my father walking, I only used to hear dhikr. I only used to see him remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I didn't see him otherwise. So it means that when he was walking normally, his mind was occupied with the presence of Allah or the manifestation, madahir of Allah in the creation. What could he see of the presence of Allah in the world? This was what came to the mind of al-Baqir. Sometimes when we walk on the train, what goes on in our mind? It could be backbiting, some whispering, some worries, tension, anything. You and I, of course, human beings, it's natural. But to try to occupy it with some level of dhikr would be a wonderful, wonderful accomplishment for us to learn a teaching from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. He was so charitable, again reported in the same book, that people did not leave empty-handed from him. Sometimes figures of 1,000 dirhams are mentioned. Sometimes 5,000, sometimes 10,000 dirhams are mentioned. It means the Imam did not seem to care what he gave to people. Before we go on to the knowledge of the Imam, which is often what I have heard when I was young, the first thing is, when you look at his personality, it's a personality that cares for other people. In fact, when Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari asked a question to the Imam, and a very important question he asked, he said, "Oh my Imam, can you please define a Shia for me? Please define a Shia for me." And this only confirms what thinking he had about society. Salawat, please. He said, and I've got several sources for this, I don't want to bore you with that, but Amalia Tusi, Amalia Suduk, some of our earliest hadith compilation that we have this hadith. He says, "Oh Jabir, is it sufficient for one who embraces the Shia faith to only say that our love is for Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam?" Something I was always told. If you always say that you love Ahlul Bayt, you will be granted Jannah. So anyway, that's my thinking has changed now. But okay, so and this is from the Imam. So you can disagree with me, but I'm giving you the narration itself. "Oh Jabir, is it sufficient that one who embraces the Shia faith says our love is for Ahlul Bayt?" What is the Imam's response? "By Allah, taking an oath, our Shia are nothing except those who are conscious of Allah and obey Him. And our Shia are not known, O Jabir, except for their humility." That means the trait of a Shia is one who is humble. They revere God. They fulfill their promises or trusts. They remember God a lot. They fast. They pray. They are righteous to their parents. They honor their commitments to their neighbors, especially those neighbors who are poor, destitute, those in debt, the orphans. They are truthful in their speech. They recite the Quran. They don't backbite. and they are the most trustworthy people in that society. So the meaning of Shia is basically to be a trusted individual, a trusted member of the society who is righteous in his or her household and outside of it, and does not forget the remembrance of Allah. The usual theological definition that you and I give, that a Shia is the one who says Ashhadu anna Aliyyun Waliullah, is incomplete. The person who says Ashhadu anna Aliyyun Waliullah means the one who understands who Ali was. And Ali was this person that al-Baqir described. The one who, when he was struck in Masjid al-Kufa and the people were crying, they said, "Where is our father who is going to look after our orphans and widows?" This is what they all said. They did not think Imam Ali alayhi salam to be something else, that he was just a theological or religious person or principle to believe in, that his personality should be emulated. And the Imam is saying this, which is a very different definition to the traditional definitions of Shiism we are given. Salvation or success of being a Shia is exactly what al-Baqir says. That holistic view that we have, that I am conscious of Allah, that my neighbor is poor, that I am trustworthy regardless whether it's workplace or not, that I don't cheat anybody. This is who a Shia is. Salawat. Now I want to be a bit more specific. In a very important tradition that we have, which is also present in our fiqh books as well, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam categorizes the wajibat that we have within Islam. Now when I say wajibat, okay, whatever you think it means, and let's take the most simplest meaning, just the obligations that we have to do. You can take salah, you can take som, you can say hajj, zakat, even the moral obligations of keeping a promise, everything, wajibat, okay? He says in this narration which I have here, he says that there is a fountainhead, or the most important obligation upon which all of the obligations rest upon. All other obligations rest upon this obligation, which if we don't fulfill it, the rest of the obligations collapse. Okay? This hadith is in Tahdhib by Sheikh Tusi and Al-Kafi as well. It is used within fiqh discussions as well as generally within moral discussions as well. And what he says is the following. He says, indeed, innal amr bil ma'aruf wa nahi anil munkar sabilul anbiya wa minhajus sulaha faridatun azimatun biha tuqamul fara'id. That middle line is the key line. He says, indeed, the enjoyment of good and the prohibition of wrong, which I will define just now, is the path of the prophets, the way of the righteous, and a great obligation upon which all other obligations rest or are founded upon. And it continues, and on which all other ideologies are secured, by which our earnings are made lawful, by which any injustice is redressed, through which the earth flourishes, justice is sought from enemies, and all affairs are kept upright. What he is saying is that Amr bil ma'aruf and Nahi anil munkar is the key obligation upon which the rest of the obligation rests and upon which the earth becomes successful. Now when we say ma'aruf, ma'aruf literally means that which is known to be good, known to be good. And munkar is something detestable. You do not need, even in accordance with our theology, you don't need the Quran or even the prophets to tell you what is right or wrong. This is something, by the way, is part of the Shia aqaid and the Mu'tazila aqaid. You don't need the Quran or prophets to tell you that. Quran is a reminder, prophets are a reminder. Allah created us with fitrah, that you and I, when we see something commonly good in society, something commonly good, I walk down the street and I see this street is clean, so I should pick up the litter. That is ma'ruf. I don't need a book or somebody to tell me that. And munkar, if I see something detestable happening, whatever is in front of my eyes, a lie, somebody shouting, on the tube, somebody is rude, whatever it is, then I should act. Okay? So it means that for you and I, the biggest obligation in Islam is amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar. That's the biggest obligation. Because if I don't conduct myself with ma'ruf in my household or in the society, my household collapses, becomes immoral, and the rest of the society collapses. That is why Ali Shariati, if you have read his writings, some of his writings, or a number of them, say that the Muslim civilization respects and reveres Ibn Sina and Ghazali. Okay, Avicenna and Ghazali. But people don't often comment that in their society there was huge corruption, that lands were being overtaken, that people were poor. He says, why doesn't the Muslim civilization and Muslims themselves think that which other people were there trying to save the society? So he says in one of his lectures, he says that I wish that there was an Abu Dhar. I wish that there were more Abu Dhars, the man who stood for justice in the Prophet's time and after. I wish there were more Abu Dhars who would save the society from going into the corruption that the Muslim societies themselves went in and thereafter. We respect all scholars, but we must have a balance and we must have a compass. And that compass points to amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar. Salawat. And let me pose you a question, as this is also part of my work. In the current work that I'm doing, I'm dealing a lot with asylum seekers, refugees, people who are trafficked to this country and other countries, people who are engaged in forced labor. And every day I read lots of cases, okay? Lots of cases from people who are either smuggled or themselves flee out of Vietnam, out of Thailand, out of Iraq, out of Eritrea, out of many places. And it's good knowledge for myself. It removes my ignorance about what is happening in the world. And you honestly feel like crying when you read these cases, because these people, I'm just giving you an example, I'll give you a recent case. One of the clients is about maybe 16 or 18, for example. And his own family, the father and mother, separated, okay? And he was then recruited by Taliban, for example, in Afghanistan. And they kept on persecuting his household, setting it on fire, killing his cousins, killing his uncles, all sorts of things. Until such time that one of his maternal uncles said, you should flee the country. He was then smuggled, okay, through various countries in lorries, and even there he was abused, and then he managed to reach United Kingdom. And this is a common trajectory for a number of people within these sorts of fields, okay? The reason I'm sharing this with you is because when today we're living in this country and we talk about concept of family, okay, of course, in Islam, Silatul Rahim is so important. To keep the womb relatives very important to us and close to us. But when you, for example, say cousin or uncle, you always say, well, which cousin? Which uncle are you talking about? First, second, third, because it becomes very distant. And if people move away, it becomes even more distant. But when you read these cases, you realize that even the uncle who is maternal or the cousin who is first, second, or third is like their brother or sister. That they rely on them to leave the country. They rely on them to flee the country. I'm sharing this with you because within Islam, we have said, and today this is the common scholarly opinion, that slavery doesn't exist. Slavery doesn't exist. And I've yet to see, please correct me, there might be a few fatwa or a few books on this. I was reading a book by Ayatollah Muntaziri, rahmatullahi alayhi, a few pages a few weeks ago, and even he did not say, for example, that slavery is wrong. But I don't believe Muslim scholars collectively have said that slavery is forbidden. Yes? Unless you have read somewhere else. I don't think this is a collective position we have taken. So slavery still exists in terms of the fact that you and I can still employ a slave if we want. Or I can remove a qada fast by hiring a slave. We still do that. But our concept of slavery, we always go back to Prophet's time. We think of that slave that was there within the desert, and we are hiring him to be a slave within our household. But of course, if you look within current research, slavery has evolved. And let me just share with you some figures. There is a concept called modern slavery. And there are 40.3 million people in modern slavery around the world, 10 million of which are children. 24.9 million people are in forced labor, 15.4 in forced marriage, and 4.8 in sexual exploitation. And what are the forms? And this is most important. Forced labor, debt bondage, human trafficking, that's when you are transported in various countries to do certain works. A descent-based slavery, that means, for example, if your family was slaves, you are slaves. Child slavery, forced early marriage. We have all of these types of slavery. And I just have a very simple question, whether I'm Muslim or not, whether you are Muslim or not, doesn't matter. What is Islam's response to this? That's my question. Do we have a response for this contemporary human problem? What would al-Baqir alayhi salam say to respond to this problem? What would the Prophet say? Do we simply allow all of these things to occur? And when we decide one day to get out of bed and say, I've seen something in the news, now I'll give some money or I'll do something. Is this the way Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar work? Is this the way a Muslim mind works? Is that the mind that the Imam would have wanted for us? Why is it that we don't have a response to this question? Isn't this part of al-Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar? And I want to try to answer as to why, at least I humbly think, if you agree with me, that we don't have response, okay? Number one, in our fiqh books, we have about 10 pages in standard fiqh books devoted to Amr al-Ma'ruf and al-Munkar. 10 pages, roughly. In relation to 50 or 60 pages on siyam, on fasting, or 100 pages on salat. You can pick up any standard fiqh book today, and you will see that. We have 10 pages. And the argument made is that the reason why we don't identify, there's modern slavery, there's human trafficking, is because Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar have been left general in the Quran and Hadith. It is not for us to specify. So then I ask you, what is the point of Amr bil-Ma'ruf, according to Bibi Fatima az-Zahra salamullahi alayha, and Adl, being a harmony for my heart? What is the point of Amr al-Ma'ruf being a maslaha, a reform for the society? What kind of life, what would I answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When I go back to Him, when you go back to Him, and we have been aware of these problems, and yet we have been unable to help, or we did not help because we were willfully ignorant. For my Islam to be relevant, for my Imam to be relevant, for my Imam to be relevant to my children, that al-Baqir has to come out of that Imam for the Shia to the Imam for the human society, that cares for the brother on the street. That if I say Ashhadu anna Ali waliullah, it means I am following the footsteps of Ali alayhi salam, who fed Christian orphans and widows, as well as Muslim orphans and widows. Salawat. Just a few more minutes, right, Amma? Is that right? 5 minutes? 5 minutes. I want to end on two things only, okay? Where do we stand now if we accept that al-Baqir alayhi salam's vision was something much greater than only talking about the ritual duties of Islam and trying to bring every human person and society to care for each other. In the Quran, the following verses are mentioned about Amr bil Ma'ruf and Al-Munkar. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَا تَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْحُونَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Surah Al-Imran, verse 104. There has to be a nation amongst you summoning to the good, bidding what is right and forbidding what is wrong. It is they who are the successful ones. So, if Muslims or Christians or Jews or any person, doesn't matter, if we don't care for the corruption or injustice that is happening in society, Muslim lands themselves, any lands themselves will always remain full of infighting and corruption. Just a few days ago, I'll just give you a simple example. I had to deliver a court bundle to the admin court. And I overheard a conversation between a few people because they discuss asylum cases. And they were comparing what is the justice system like in various countries, in Italy, in Germany, in France. And I also have proof of this in the cases that I read. And they all said, and it's not to say that this, the system of this country is perfect, but better than many others. They said that in the British system, there is always that rule of law. That is, the judge cannot be bought, nor can the solicitor or the barrister. That is, the client must go through confidentiality. That is, there is a full transparency in the mechanism. And when I read the cases, for example, the way the asylum seekers are treated in Italian police stations or German police stations, I don't think I've read any single case where they've said we want to, because they always ask in the police station in the country, in Italy or Germany or France, would you like to claim asylum here? That means, do you want to remain here? And they go, no, we don't want to do that. I have been told by my friend that we should come to the United Kingdom. I've read that in every single case. So I'm just giving a simple example. Whether it is Muslim lands or non-Muslim lands, doesn't matter. I'm not trying to propel one against the other. I'm just saying that if a country or society cares for people, then it will represent itself as enjoining that which is good and will become successful. And I ask you and leave you with this one very simple sermon from Imam alayhi salam. In the Prophet's time, what were the problems? What was the point of the Prophet? The common response given, oh yes, Prophet, peace upon him, came to reform people's morals. Makarimul akhlaq, that is a standard response given. Well, I would like to know what problems were there and what was the focus of Islam. If we are celebrating al-Baqir, what should be our focus now? Look at Imam Ali's sermon where he describes why the Prophet came and see what Imam Ali's thinking is and what the Prophet's thinking is, okay? This is sermon number 26, if I'm correct, of Nahj al-Balagha. Inna Allah subhanahu ba'atha Muhammad nadhiran lil alamin. Indeed, Allah, glory be to him, sent Muhammad as a warner to all of the worlds. Okay. Wa aminan ala tanzil. And he sent him as a trustee over the revelation. So he's there to guard the revelation. Wa antum ma'ashar al-Arabi ala sharri din. While you all, the Arab society, were on the worst creed. وفي شر الدار منيخون بين حجارة خشن وحيات صم تشربون الكدر. He says, while you on the worst creed and in the worst dwelling, that means you used to live in terrible houses, you resided amongst coarse stones, persistent snakes. So the Arabs at that time used to live amongst persistent snakes and those very rough stones. And you drank muddy water. That's how they used to live. According to Imam Ali, they drank muddy water. وَتَأْكُلُونَ الْجَشِبَ وَتَسْفِكُونَ دِمَاءَكُمْ. You ate foul food, shed your blood, and he continues, وَتَقْتَعُونَ أَرْحَامَكُمْ. And you cut off your womb relatives. The idols amongst you, asnam, the idol amongst all of you were fixed and the sins were wrapped around all of you. I read this about 2 months ago because I had to go and present a lecture in a university. And the reason I presented it was to show the European sociologists what was the focus of Islam. The focus was Islam was very simple: to live well, to live clean, to live comfortably, to live in a way that you would not have snakes in your backyard, unless you're in Australia, or to live in a way where you have happy relationship with people, with your family. How simple is that? If al-Baqir al-Islam was alive today, he would be thinking, is this water clean? Which I'm sure it is. Is it clean? What type of carpet do you have here? Are people comfortable? Which I'm sure people are. And inshallah in the Salam Center they'll be even more comfortable, inshallah. He would be saying, how are people living? And what's your relationship like with your family members? And what type of sins are you committing? Are your sins wrapping them around you? Are you engulfed by your sins? Come out of your sins. Don't worship idols. Whether today it's the celebrity or something else, or whether it's money, whatever it is. So therefore I conclude in this, that Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir alayhi salam is the Imam who is concerned about the human society. And his vision is to make the society comfortable, successful, welcoming to all, and implementing justice. If a community or a society is doing that, it represents the vision of our beautiful and dear Imam. Salawat. Jazakallah for your time. Please can we end with a Surah Al-Fatiha? Thank you.
Inshallah, we have some time for some questions and answers. Are there any questions from the women's side?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for a lovely lecture. Very, very good message. What I'm trying to ask you is, why are we not following this Islam? We always segregate between Hindu, Muslim, Christians. You know, we are not sort of what message we have been sort of not going to the right path. What is that we have been deterred from the right path? What are the circumstances?
Jazakallah Aunty for that question. As I mentioned in the lecture, I think one of the issues there's been an over-focus on other obligations like Salat and Siyam. Nobody disputes them. But if we are praying and still becoming arrogant or not caring for the poor person, then what value is our Salat? We can pray perfectly well. So I think there is an imbalance in how we look at Islam and how and what type of message we also may give in our communities. As for segregation, I think that's a more difficult question to ask. It's, for example, if we talk about people migrating to this country, they had their own experiences, trying to establish religion, building mosques. It's not that we tried intentionally, perhaps, to be away from our Christian or Jewish brothers or other sects, whatever, but we also had our own concerns. But I think you're right in saying that today in a globalized society where we're all very connected, we don't have an excuse to say that somebody is not welcome in our center or to make it an exclusive club, that the way our Imam should be marketed should be something very universal, like who is Hussein. So I think we are maybe trying to do that, but we still have a long way to go. And it's not just our responsibility, also responsibility of Christians, of Jews, of all people, inshallah. Okay.
Any questions from the men? Any more from the women's side? All right, inshallah. Oh, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
In my experience, I have come across, because I used to work with mental health before, and I have come across Muslim ladies saying, oh, these Christians, keep your children away from them because they drink, they eat pork. But when it comes to benefit time, they all don't think who has given the money. And this segregation I have seen over the years, and because it used to hurt me, because the people, whoever is patient in the institution, mental health institution, they were treated equally and very well. But within the communities, this message goes around, and I have been seeing this for the last 15, 20 years. And those little children have now become adults, and their minds are poisoned at a very young age. What would you like to say about that?
I was told the same thing. Anyway, so it's true. But I don't blame my elders or parents in that. I mean, no, I was told that we were brought up. I was brought up in the same way, to always keep a distance. Now it's quite opposite as you gain knowledge and see how society is. But I think it's the overemphasis on those specific rules rather than looking at the benefit of the human interaction. You know, that ultimately we are all creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of us.
How do we spread that? We are becoming very cocooned.
Yeah, I think to reinterpret what the Imams actually did, how they behaved. That's why I gave the last sermon, that whoever you are, Imam Baqir would not allow somebody else to drink muddy water, for example, or live uncomfortably. So we should have that same concern. And in the Arba'in lectures I gave here, I can't remember, 2 months ago, whenever it was, that, you know, there is a section in Surah al-Baqarah, okay, where the Prophet is trying to solve a dispute between Jews and Christians. And the Jews are telling the Christians that we are the exclusive and superior ones, and the Christians are saying the same thing. And they go to the Prophet, and the Prophet says, why are you saying this? So the Jew says, well, look, we are reciting our book correctly and doing all the rituals, and the Christians do the same. And then the Prophet asks the question, do you all understand the essence of your book? And I'll pose a simple question, maybe as an answer. How often do Muslims read the Quran and understand it? What does it actually mean? I think if we don't engage with the beauty of the Quran, we will not realize how we should actually think about society, inshallah. No, there are many people better than me, inshallah. So,
are there any more questions? All right, inshallah, we will end with ziyarah. Thank you very much.
Okay, jazakallah, thank you.